Collins thought he was chasing rich women to escape poverty, but he didn't know one of them would claim his soul and throw his own wife into the street. Welcome to African Tales by Chinwa, breathing life into African tales. Collins was the kind of handsome that caused small traffic. At 36, charming, smooth-talking, and always dressed like he was going somewhere important, he carried himself with the quiet boldness of a man who had learned how to survive in Abuja without a traditional job. People who saw him thought he worked in tech or oil and gas, something respectable, something corporate. If only they knew. Collins was a gigolo. Not a side hustle, not an accidental arrangement. It was his full career. He lived off wealthy women, comforting them, charming them, pleasing them, and collecting whatever they offered in return. It wasn't pretty, but it kept him alive. And Thelma, his 28-year-old girlfriend, accepted it. Thelma was stunning in a way that made you forgive all her life choices, curvy, soft-spoken, playful, always glowing without trying. She was a sit-at-home girlfriend by choice, not by circumstance. Her whole dream was simple. Collins would make money from his hustle, bring it home, and they would live comfortably. She didn't push him to get a real job. She didn't lecture him about morality. She didn't fight him when he needed to go entertain a new woman. Instead, she would call after him, "Collins, just be careful, and don't forget to buy pizza on your way back." Their love was strange, but it worked, at least for them. They tolerated what other couples would never survive. Collins tolerated Thelma's constant dependency. Thelma tolerated Collins' lifestyle without blinking. Both of them were driven by one quiet fear: poverty. As long as money was flowing from whichever woman Collins was currently involved with, their small rented apartment stayed warm and sweet. They ate well, they laughed, they fooled themselves into believing love was enough. But Abuja has a way of reminding you of reality. When money slowed down, tension crept into their home like an uninvited guest. The loud generator outside suddenly felt louder. Their fridge became emptier. They started avoiding each other's eyes, both waiting for the other to say what needed to be said. One night, as they shared a plate of noodles cooked with the last 2 eggs in the house, Collins finally spoke. "Thelma, things are getting tight. We can't continue like this." She nodded. "So what do we do?" Collins hesitated before saying it. "You remember that native doctor I told you about? The one in Koru? He was the one that helped me before. If I meet him again, things will open again, and even better." Thelma didn't argue. She wasn't the arguing type. When you have chosen a man like Collins, you learn to accept the path that comes with him. "Let's go," she said, "before hunger finishes us." And that was how, on a hot afternoon, they boarded a bike heading to a shrine behind an abandoned filling station. The shrine looked nothing like what Collins had described months ago. Back then, he claimed it was small but powerful, the kind of place where spirits answered fast. But standing in front of it now, Thelma felt her courage wobble. The building sat behind an abandoned filling station on the outskirts of Karu. The walls were cracked. The zinc roof looked like it had survived a war. The air around it was heavy, like the place held its breath. Collins didn't flinch. He pushed aside the red curtains hanging at the entrance and stepped in like someone returning to work. Inside, the shrine felt alive. Bundles of dried herbs hung from the ceiling. Clay pots lined the floor. Candles burned with flames that bent in unnatural directions. Incense thickened the air until it felt drinkable. Thelma held Collins' arm tighter. The native doctor sat cross-legged on a mat, wearing a wrapper printed with faded symbols. His eyes were sharper than Thelma remembered from Collins's stories, sharp, in a way that made her avoid looking at them for too long. "Welcome," he said, his voice low, almost amused. "You've come back." Collins bowed slightly. "Baba, things are hard again. The road closed." The native doctor chuckled. "The road didn't close. You abandoned the one who opened it." He tapped a cowrie against the floor. The sound echoed like metal on stone. "What I gave you before was enough to attract simple women," Baba said. "Ordinary rich ones. And right now, you want more. You want stability." Collins swallowed. Thelma could see the hunger in his eyes. He wanted the life he had never tasted. Comfort, respect, financial ease. The native doctor leaned forward. "To get that, you need something stronger, something that will bend the heart of any woman you approach. She will open doors for you. She will open her pockets. She will lift you." "What will it cost?" Collins asked. The man smiled a slow, knowing smile. "Everything powerful has a price. You will pay triple of the first payment." He reached behind him and brought out a small gourd tied with black and red threads. Strange marks were carved into its side. It pulsed faintly, like something inside it was breathing. Thelma stepped back. Collins stepped forward. "This one will attract a woman who can change your life," the native doctor said, "and she will come quickly. But note, any woman that angrily leaves your life, you will go back to nothing." Without thinking, Collins collected the gourd with both hands, bowing in gratitude. Thelma watched him, her heart torn between fear and relief. Fear, because everything in that shrine felt wrong. Relief, because this might solve their problems. They left the shrine with the charm wrapped in a black cloth. As they mounted a bike back to Abuja, Thelma didn't notice the way the gourd shifted inside Collins' pocket, as though something inside it had finally woken up. 3 weeks after Collins and Thelma visited the shrine, life shifted. It started with a strange coincidence at a high-end lounge in Woos 2. Collins wasn't even supposed to be there. A friend had dragged him out, insisting he needed fresh air to clear his hustler brain. Collins walked in wearing his best shirt, ironed so sharply it could cut yam. The moment he stepped through the doors, heads turned. But one head turned with intention. Madame Zara. She sat in a velvet booth, dressed in a red gown that carried confidence like perfume. A wealthy widow in her 40s, known in Abuja for her class, her generosity, and her habit of spoiling the men she fancied. She didn't hide her taste. She didn't pretend. When she wanted something, she went for it. And that night, she wanted Collins. He felt the charm pull him toward her like a soft hand on his back. She felt something warm bloom inside her chest the moment he smiled. "Good evening, Ma," Collins greeted, lowering his voice to that tone women found irresistible. "Sit with me," she said, tapping the seat beside her. "I don't bite, unless necessary." Collins chuckled. The charm glowed faintly in his pocket. By the time the waiter dropped their drinks, Zara was already asking questions. "What do you do? Where do you live? You're not married, right?" Collins answered smoothly, painting himself as a humble man trying to survive the harshness of Abuja. Zara adored humility, especially the well-packaged type. That night, she gave him her number. 2 days later, she gave him a shopping allowance. A week after that, she gave him a car key. Thelma nearly fainted when she saw the car outside their small rented apartment. Jesus, Collins, is this one of those borrowed cars from your friends? No, he said, tossing her the keys just to watch her excitement. This one is ours. The charm was working. Zara was opening doors, wallets, and options. Within months, she bought Collins a comfortable bungalow, modern, furnished, steady electricity, painted in calm earth tones. Every time Thelma walked through it, she felt like she had moved from struggling to succeeding overnight. Collins grew bolder. Thelma grew content. She started planning her wedding long before Collins proposed. The irony? She was right. When the money became stable, Collins decided it was finally time. He married Thelma quietly, using Zara's money, and in true Abuja fashion, news traveled faster than Harmattan dust. When Madame Zara heard about the wedding, she arrived at Collins' new bungalow with the calmness of a rich woman who knew her power. She collected her car key and some other things from him. "Let your wife sponsor you now," she said with a cold smile. That was the last day Collins saw the soft warmth in her eyes. The charm failed again. Zara walked away, and with her exit, wealth walked out too. Quietly, quickly, and permanently. Thelma had gotten her marriage, but she didn't realize she had also inherited his downfall. Poverty doesn't knock twice. Once it finds an opening, it enters with confidence. Barely a month after Madame Zara walked out, things in the bungalow began to change. The generator started misbehaving. The fridge developed attitude. Food items disappeared faster than they were replaced. Collins and Thelma went from eating shawarma and suya at night to negotiating how many cups of gari they could afford per day. Zara had carried her wealth and Collins' luck with her. Thelma kept pretending things were fine, but Collins could see her fear. She tried to smile, laughed louder than usual, cooked bigger portions of watery stew, but her eyes were dull. She had married Collins during his rise. Now she was tasting his downfall. The bungalow that once felt like evidence of God's favor suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too expensive to maintain. Collins spent his days pacing the parlor. Thelma spent hers lying on the sofa, scrolling through Instagram and feeling her chest tighten. Everyone on her timeline seemed to be progressing except her. One evening, after eating the last bread in the house, Collins sat beside her. "Thelma, we can't continue like this." She didn't look at him. "So what do you want to do?" Collins hesitated. "I'm thinking, maybe we should go back to Baba, the native doctor. The charm stopped working after Zara left." Thelma slowly sat up. "Collins, are you sure this is a good idea? The first one worked, yes, but look how it ended." Collins rubbed his forehead. "We don't have money, Thelma. No rich woman is noticing me. Even the small ones are ignoring me." "So your plan is to renew it?" "It's the only plan I have." Silence settled between them. Heavy silence. Thelma didn't want to return to that place. Something about that gourd, the way it pulsed in Collins' hand, the way the candles flickered, had disturbed her spirit. But love mixed with hunger is a powerful combination. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's go." The next morning, Collins wrapped the old charm in black cloth and tucked it under his shirt. They boarded a bike heading back to Karu, passing dusty roads, broken signboards, and thick bushes that made Thelma grip Collins' waist tighter. When they reached the abandoned filling station, Thelma felt her heartbeat change. The shrine looked older, darker, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, the native doctor sat as if he never moved. "I knew you would return," he said without lifting his head. Collins stepped forward. "Baba, The charm failed. It didn't fail, the man said calmly. You offended the one financing your destiny. When she withdrew, everything collapsed. Collins swallowed hard. So what do I do? The native doctor lifted his gaze. You renew it. But understand, this time, the sacrifice will be heavier. Thelma felt a shiver run down her spine. Collins nodded. I accept. The native doctor smiled faintly. That's what I wanted to hear. He brought out another gourd, this one darker, colder, marked with deeper symbols. As Collins held it, Thelma noticed something move inside it. A ripple, a breath. She stepped back without meaning to. This charm wasn't like the first. This one felt hungry, and none of them knew that the woman it would bring, Dorcas, had a spiritual backing that dwarfed Collins' charm by 100-fold. The charm didn't take long to show its strength. This one was quicker, sharper, almost impatient. It didn't wait for Collins to dress well or go to expensive places. It simply positioned him where fate needed him to be. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon at a pharmacy in Guarinpa. Collins had only stepped in to buy painkillers. Thelma had been complaining of headaches from too much thinking, and he wanted to do at least one thing that felt like responsibility. He walked in casually, not even aware the charm was warm against his chest. Dorcas was standing by the counter. 55 years old, dark-skinned, soft features, the kind of woman whose sadness hid behind well-pressed clothes and polite smiles. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her prescriptions. She looked like someone who had waited for happiness so long that she no longer believed it would come. Loneliness had made her desperate enough to do something she never imagined. Something spiritual, something binding, something powerful, a sacrifice for marriage, one that guaranteed the man who entered her life next would never leave her. The spiritualist had warned her, the next man who enters your life will never leave unless you release him yourself, and Dorcas never planned to release anyone. So, when Collins brushed past her, the charm he carried collided with the sacrifice she had done. Her power overshadowed his immediately. Collins didn't know what hit him. He simply turned, saw her, and felt drawn to her with a force too strong to resist. It wasn't the usual GIGOLO charm. This felt deeper, almost like he was obeying a silent instruction. Good afternoon, Ma, he said with his smooth, respectful voice. Dorcas looked up, startled by the attention of such a handsome man. Ah, good afternoon, she replied, adjusting her scarf nervously. Are you okay? You look stressed. Dorcas gave a small laugh. I'm fine, just thinking. Collins smiled warmly. Something in him softened. Thinking is dangerous. You should allow someone help you carry small of it. Dorcas blinked. Her heart gave a strange leap. This was him, the husband her sacrifice had summoned. Within minutes, she was telling him things she hadn't told anyone, her loneliness and her struggles. Collins listened attentively, not because he cared deeply, but because the charm made him magnetic. And Dorcas's own spiritual force made him obedient in ways he didn't understand. By the time they left the pharmacy, Dorcas had given him her number. Her hands shook as she saved his contact. She named him Collins, the Chosen. Collins walked away feeling light, unaware that Dorcas's sacrifice had wrapped invisible chains around him. That night at home, Thelma noticed the distant look on his face. Collins, hope everything is okay. He shrugged. I met someone, a woman. She gave me something small for transport. Thelma's eyes lit up with hope. So the charm is working. Collins nodded slowly, but deep inside something felt off. He didn't know that the woman he had just met wasn't just another rich widow. Dorcas had been spiritually armed long before his charm came into play, and fate had just introduced him to a force he could never control. Dorcas didn't waste time. From the moment she met Collins, her spirit locked onto him like a bird, finally spotting a branch. After flying for years, she called him morning, afternoon, and night. She sent small money for lunch. She asked if he had eaten. She prayed for him on the phone. Everything about her attention had weight, and Collins, under both charms, his and hers, responded like someone being pulled by invisible ropes. Thelma noticed the shift immediately. Collins started dressing differently before going out. He began hiding his phone. He smiled at messages more than usual. He randomly hummed gospel songs even though he hadn't stepped into church for months. So one evening she asked directly, "Collins, what's going on? Who is this woman?" Collins hesitated but told her the truth. Well, half of it. She's older, lonely, has small money. Baba's charm attracted her. If I play my cards well, something bigger might come. Thelma nodded slowly, swallowing her discomfort. She had agreed to this kind of life. She couldn't now start complaining. Poverty leaves no room for pride. Still, when Dorcas asked to visit their house, Thelma's heart dropped. "What will you tell her about me?" she asked. Collins paused, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'll introduce you as my younger sister. Just for now." Thelma felt the insult, but what could she do? Their survival was hanging by threads. The day Dorcas visited, she arrived with nylon bags filled with groceries, rice, oil, chicken, juice, and even tissue paper. She entered the bungalow like a woman ready to bless a home. "Thelma, dear," she greeted with genuine warmth. "Your brother told me you're staying with him while searching for a job." Thelma forced a smile that tasted like humiliation. "Yes, Ma." Dorcas patted her shoulder. "You're a good girl. I can see how neat this place is. Women like you are rare." Collins watched proudly. To him, things were finally moving again. Thelma cooked for them, jollof and fried chicken. She set the dining table while Dorcas watched her with approving eyes. Dorcas kept saying things like, "God will reward you. Your brother is lucky. And you will marry well." The irony nearly choked Thelma. Meanwhile, Collins collected pocket money from Dorcas with ease. But the moment he accepted the first major gift, a thick envelope containing money for upkeep, something inside him shifted. The charm didn't just attract Dorcas. Her own spiritual sacrifice activated even more. Collins' eyes softened whenever she spoke. He found himself listening to her like she was the only sensible person in the world. He no longer needed to pretend affection. His mind leaned toward her naturally. Thelma noticed immediately. He started ignoring her questions. He laughed at Dorcas's jokes too hard. He followed her around the house like a shadow. One night when Dorcas had left, Thelma confronted him. "Collins, you're falling for her." He frowned at her like she was interrupting a dream. "It's the charm working, Thelma. Relax." But deep down, Thelma felt something was wrong. This wasn't attraction. This wasn't ordinary gigolo business. This was spiritual domination. Dorcas wasn't just another woman. She was a woman whose voodoo, sacrifices, and desperation had summoned a husband, and Collins had walked straight into the trap. Dorcas' visits became more frequent. At first it was once a week, then twice. Then she started coming every other day with excuses that didn't make sense. "Collins, I was passing your area." "Collins, I bought something for you people." Collins, I felt led to check on you. Thelma noticed the pattern before Collins did. Dorcas wasn't visiting. She was infiltrating. One Wednesday afternoon, the knock on the door sounded louder than usual. When Thelma opened it, she froze. Dorcas stood there with 2 huge boxes and a small traveling handbag. "Good afternoon, my dear," Dorcas said warmly. "Please call Collins for me." Collins came to the door, confused. "Mama D, what's all this?" Dorcas sighed dramatically. "My landlord wants to renovate. The dust will be too much. I can't stay there. Just for a few days, let me manage here." Before Collins could process her words, she dragged her bags inside with the confidence of a woman who had already been invited spiritually. Thelma's jaw tightened. Collins looked at her helplessly, but the look didn't last. Something shifted in his eyes. Obedience, calmness, a strange acceptance. "I think it's fine," he said quietly. "She's like a mother figure. She won't disturb." "A mother figure?" Thelma almost laughed. Within hours, Dorcas arranged her clothes neatly in the wardrobe right beside Thelma's. She placed her slippers beside Thelma's expensive house slippers. She filled the bathroom shelf with her lotion, soap, sponge, and oils. The house was no longer Thelma's. That evening, Dorcas cooked. Not Thelma. She occupied the kitchen like she owned the place. Her food smelled good, annoyingly good. Collins kept praising it, licking his fingers, forgetting Thelma cooked that same meal almost weekly. "Dorcas, this is delicious," he said with too much excitement. Dorcas smiled knowingly. "A man must eat well to think well." Thelma said nothing. She felt the shift. The walls of the bungalow felt tighter. Her seat on the sofa suddenly felt borrowed. Her own home felt like a stranger's house. Later that day, when Collins and Dorcas were laughing softly in the living room, Thelma pulled Collins aside. "Collins, what is happening? Why is she staying here? How is this normal?" Collins frowned as if irritated by her concern. "Baby, relax. It's temporary, and she's helping us, or have you forgotten? But this is our home. Why is she acting like your wife?" Collins' eyes hardened. "Thelma, don't disrespect her. She's been good to us." "Good to us?" Thelma almost choked. Dorcas watched their argument from the dining table, humming a gospel song. Her eyes glowed with quiet satisfaction. She wasn't just staying over. She was settling in, spiritually and physically. That night, Thelma lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a weight pressing down on her chest. A weight that whispered the truth she didn't want to accept. Dorcas wasn't leaving. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not ever. It took only 1 week for Dorcas to turn the bungalow upside down. Not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. A silent reshuffling happened in that house, and Thelma felt herself pushed further down the ladder every passing day. Dorcas woke up before everyone. She prayed loudly in the living room, pacing in circles, anointing the air, sprinkling holy water she never explained. Her prayers always included suspicious lines like, "Any woman standing in the way of my marital breakthrough, Baba God remove her by fire." Thelma would sit up in bed, heart pounding. She knew exactly who that woman was. Collins didn't see anything wrong. He was becoming the blind, no, obedient, like his will had been softened and kneaded into shape. Dorcas cooked breakfast daily. Collins always ate happily. He even started asking for her food. Thelma felt like a visitor in her own home, a stranger, a shadow. The cracks finally widened one Friday evening. Dorcas had gone to take her bath. Collins sat on the sofa, scrolling through his phone with a blank expression. Thelma stood in front of him, arms folded across her chest, tired of keeping quiet. "Collins, we need to talk." He didn't look up. "About what?" "About this woman, about how she has taken over our home, about how you're treating me like I'm the side chick." Collins sighed. "Thelma, not again." "No. Today, yes again," she snapped, her voice trembling. "Because you are not seeing what is happening. You are losing yourself." Collins finally looked up, and for a moment Thelma flinched. His eyes didn't look like his own. They looked foggy, trapped. "She helped us," he said calmly. Too calmly. "She brought food when we had nothing. She gave me money. She supports us. You should respect her." Thelma's jaw dropped. "Respect her? Collins, she's trying to replace me." "Don't talk like that," he said sharply, a tone she had never heard from him before. Thelma's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. At that moment, Dorcas walked out of the bathroom wearing a wrapper and a towel around her shoulders. She stopped when she saw them and smiled faintly. "Is everything okay here?" Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. Thelma turned to her. "Auntie Dorcas, with all due respect, this is my home. You came here temporarily, but now you're acting like you want to take over." Dorcas tilted her head slightly. "Want to?" she repeated softly. "My dear, I already have." Collins stood up immediately, as if responding to a command. "Thelma, stop talking to her like that." Thelma stared at him, stunned. "Collins, you're defending her against me." Dorcas walked closer, her presence heavy, almost unnatural. "Thelma, I've been patient with you," she said quietly, "but you are becoming a disturbance." "A disturbance?" Thelma whispered. "Yes, Collins, tell her." Collins' jaw tightened. "Thelma, you're stressing me. You're stressing the house. If this continues, you will have to leave," Collins said, and the words hit Thelma like a slap. Her knees weakened. "Collins, you want me to leave because of her. Your wife." But he wasn't listening. Not to her, not to himself. Not anymore. Dorcas smiled without showing her teeth. A quiet, victorious smile. Inside the house, the shadows shifted. The air thickened. Something unseen was claiming territory. Thelma realized the painful truth. She wasn't just fighting a woman. She was fighting something behind the woman. Something older, stronger, hungrier. And Collins was already gone. The days that followed felt unreal, as if the house itself was shifting its loyalty. Thelma walked around the bungalow carefully, like someone tiptoeing through a dream that could become a nightmare at any moment. She no longer felt seen. She no longer felt heard. Even the mirrors seemed to avoid reflecting her fully. Dorcas, on the other hand, blossomed. She rearranged the kitchen. She redecorated the living room. She shifted Thelma's things without asking. She spoke to Collins like they had known each other for years. And Collins obeyed. It wasn't normal obedience. It wasn't love. It wasn't desire. It was submission. Deep, quiet, frightening submission. He followed Dorcas around with the soft eyes of someone whose mind had been pinned down spiritually. When she asked for water, he almost ran. When she complained of back pain, he massaged her shoulders with a devotion Thelma had never received. Thelma watched it with a mix of heartbreak and growing terror. One evening, after Dorcas had retired to the bedroom she had gradually claimed as hers, Thelma approached Collins again. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "Collins," she said, voice shaking, "look at me." He didn't. "Collins, please," she whispered, "look into my eyes." Slowly, he lifted his gaze, but what Thelma saw made her chest tighten. His eyes were dull, not like someone who was tired, like someone who had been spiritually dimmed. This woman, Thelma continued, she is not ordinary. Collins, you're under something. This isn't natural. This isn't you. Collins' face hardened. Thelma, leave me alone. She blinked, stunned. Leave you alone? Collins, I'm your wife. His expression didn't change. He said nothing, just silence, heavy silence. Suddenly, Dorcas appeared in the hallway. She didn't speak immediately. She simply stood there, her shadow stretched unnaturally long behind her, longer than logic allowed. Then she spoke, soft, firm, deadly. Collins, send her away. Thelma's breath caught. What? Collins didn't hesitate. He didn't argue. He didn't think. He turned to her with robotic calm. Thelma, he said in a voice that felt borrowed, pack your things. You're leaving this minute. Thelma staggered back, tears finally spilling. Collins, this is our home. You can't do this. Because of her? Dorcas didn't blink. She watched Thelma with the quiet satisfaction of a woman seeing her spiritual work manifest. Collins moved past Thelma, opened the bedroom wardrobe, and pulled down her bags. He threw her clothes inside carelessly, as though packing for a stranger. Collins, please, Thelma sobbed. We suffered together. We built this life together. Don't do this to me. He didn't hear her, or maybe he heard her but couldn't care. When he dragged her bags to the door and dropped them outside, the sun had already begun to set. The sky was a burnt orange, bleeding slowly into darkness. Thelma stepped out, trembling, broken, barefoot. Dorcas stood behind Collins, her hand resting on his shoulder like a seal of ownership. From the moment Thelma left, the bungalow changed. The lights flickered at night, the air felt heavy, and Collins moved through the house like a man living underwater. Slow, distant, barely aware of himself. Dorcas, on the other hand, grew stronger. Her skin glowed, her laughter echoed through the rooms. She cooked, rearranged the house, whispering things Collins never fully understood. The more she stayed, the less human she seemed. The charm Collins had renewed no longer answered him. Dorcas's sacrifice had swallowed it whole. His destiny wasn't in his hands anymore, and whenever he watched her walk into their bedroom now, Collins finally understood the truth. He hadn't just married Thelma, he had married his downfall, and Dorcas wasn't a lover or just his benefactress. She was his captor. Moral of the story: be careful what you chase in the name of survival. When you build your future on shortcuts and secrets, you may gain the world for a moment, but you can lose yourself forever. If you were Thelma, would you have walked away earlier or fought harder for Collins? And why? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more chilling stories every week on African Tales by Chinwa.